Hello everybody and welcome to my review of the third Lion King film. The Lion King 3, Hakuna Matata, or The Lion King 1.5, as, I'm just going to call it The Lion King 1.5 because to call it The Lion King 3 is really not the right title because it's not a sequel to the second movie. It is, The Lion King 1.5 is basically a prequel / companion piece to the first movie. Well, it's a companion film to the first one. It's set during the events of the first movie, but it focuses on Timon and Pumbaa, and basically how they met and how they became good friends, and basically shows us what we didn't see in the first Lion King movie, that they were there the whole time, we just didn't know it. And it really focuses more on Timon and his story. He lives across the way from Pride Rock in his sort of clan of meerkats, and they're forever digging tunnels to try and escape the hyenas. And Timon is an outcast. He doesn't really fit in with anyone, and then he has to go on a quest to find his dream home so he can live away from the people who are, who don't like him. And he wants to prove himself, and he wants to just live a life of peace, away from that. And then he runs into Pumbaa, and then Pumbaa joins in, and it kind of goes on from there, really. And this movie is very different to the first two films, in the sense that it's tonally very different. This movie is centrally a comedy about, having said that, because of Timon and Pumbaa are the main focus of the story. So it's, that's it, really. So, The Lion King 1.5, how is it? It's very clearly the weakest of the three movies, in my opinion. I don't know, I think it's kind of... This sort of trilogy reminds me of Thor, in that the first two are very different to the third one. The first two Thor movies are more serious. They have their light moments, but they're more dramatic and more serious, and the third one is a comedy. And that's very much the same situation for the Lion King trilogy. The first two are very similar in their tone. They're much more dramatic and serious. And not that they don't have light relief, but this one is purely comedy-centric. It's like comedy, zany, comedy, laughs, comedy. Oh, it's all light, it's comedy, it's fun, it's comedy, it's light, it's fun. So, in that sense, it doesn't really feel like it belongs in the trilogy. It actually feels, to me, like more of a spin-off movie to the series than it does an actual third part of a trilogy, even though it's not really a third part, considering they called it The Lion King 1.5, or The Lion King 3, Hakuna Matata. They should have just called it the Timon and Pumbaa movie, because that's what it is. It's nothing to do with Simba. Simba's in it, but briefly, they shouldn't have called it The Lion King. It's not really a Lion King movie. And I just think that the fact that it is so comedy-centric really kind of takes me out of it. Don't get me wrong, it's certainly not a terrible film. I did enjoy it in terms of its entertainment value. As a piece of entertainment, as a night in, you can watch it and have a laugh. It's almost like a pastiche, kind of parody of The Lion King, of the first movie, just with Timon and Pumbaa. So in that sense, it's kind of fun. It's a fun movie, and it is quite funny. I did enjoy it for what it was. But as a piece of film, there's not enough drama. When the dramatic moments hit, it's so forced. Because Timon's story is so generic, in the sense that he's the outcast of his group, he has to leave and prove himself. It's like, I've seen this before. And it doesn't work for me. I liked seeing how Timon and Pumbaa met. That was nice, and they have some nice relationship moments. But I feel like this movie went way too far in making Timon a dick. Timon in this movie is really unlikable. I know that's kind of the point, because he's meant to realise the error of his ways, and then finally not be so selfish all the time. But they go way too far with it. He treats everybody like an absolute dick, other than probably Simba, but he treats Pumbaa like an absolute piece of trash, and it's not Nathan Lane's fault. Nathan Lane performs Timon very well, but I think it's the writing, the way they wrote him in this movie. He's such a selfish selfish, unlikable dick, and I didn't like him in this film. I didn't like Timon. I mean, well, I did towards the end, you know, when he finally realises the error of his ways. But I thought that was a big, big misstep. And I kind of think that this movie tried too hard to connect to the first Lion King movie, in the sense that Timon and Pumbaa are there in every single scenario. They, you know, it's like they were there at Simba's birth. You know, they were there at the Circle of Life opening. That scene, I have to say, was ruined now. I know it was funny at first. For the first second you watch it, but then you go, oh, right, yeah. Kind of tarnishes the powerfulness of the Circle of Life song when you watch it in the first movie. It kind of makes the whole thing redundant, which is such a shame. So it's like Timon and Pumbaa are there for that. They're there for the I Just Can't Wait to Be King song. They're there for Be Prepared in the Elephant Graveyard. They're there for the Stampede scene. It's like, you don't have to have them in every single scene of the first Lion King. It's like, yes, they were there the whole time, but they didn't have to be part of every single thing. Surely, I just find that completely unbelievable. And, you know, as a result, I just think this movie was relying too much on its nostalgia. I'm sorry, it just was. And, you know, you're not going to get a rant about The Lion King 3 because, you know, there's no point. There's nothing to rant about. It's just a very odd film. The cast do try, definitely. Nathan Lane as Timon, he does a good job. Considering the movie is about him, he does a good job. Ernie Sabella as Pumbaa, he's also very good. And they're a good comedy duo. I have to say though, one thing that really did fucking piss me off was the whole idea of them watching their own film in a cinema. What? How the fuck does that work? It's so unrealistic. You know, I know this movie's trying to be a comedy, but seriously, that idea is just bizarre. I can't get my head around it. How the hell do they have a fucking cinema in this universe? You know, it's like is this movie set in a parallel universe to the first two films? What the freaking fuck? And then, I mean, the one good thing it did was bring all the sort of Disney characters together at the end for the very last scene. But that's, you know, that's beside the point. It just makes no fucking sense. And every time they kind of pause their own film, it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, you just ruined so many dramatic, emotional moments between these two characters. And they pause it for a comedic punchline or oh snap, comedy scene. It just doesn't work. It's unrealistic. It's not funny. It just doesn't work. I'm sorry. Okay, rant over. The other performances, you got Matthew Broderick returns briefly as Simba, Moira Kelly as Nala. The hyenas return, which is nice. Edward Hibbert has a couple of lines as Zazu. There's not many other characters. Oh! Julie Kavner, Marge Simpson. She voices Timon's mother. She's rather good. I do like her. Jerry Stiller is Uncle Max. He's good. And I also just think that the songs aren't good at all. I mean, the Dig a Tunnel one is quite fun. But the other one, That's All I Need, I didn't really care for that one. And then, what was the other one? They had their own rendition of Hakuna Matata. It just wasn't. It wasn't as good because they paused it halfway through for that fucking cinema scene. So those cinema scenes were just not very good at all. I'm okay with them doing it for the trailer of the actual movie because it's a good tool for promotion, but it doesn't work for the actual movie. I'm sorry. And there's this scene when Timon and Simba have a slug slurping contest. I mean, I understand this movie's made for kids, but like you wouldn't see anything like this in the first two films. And for me, it didn't do anything for me. It didn't do absolutely anything for me. I mean, the fact that, you know, I mean, there are some funny moments in this movie, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a bad film, I did laugh at some bits, but it's just at times very unbelievable, and I just think that the movie shouldn't have been a comedy. If you had to make a film about Timon and Pumbaa, then fine, fair enough, but calling it The Lion King, it's devoid of that. It's not about the lions, you know. So don't call it The Lion King, just call it Timon and Pumbaa, the movie, because that's what it is. To call it The Lion King 3, or even to call it The Lion King 1.5, is not right, is not correct. I think the climax is good, even though it's the exact same climax as the first movie, except you're seeing a different side of it. You're seeing what Timon and Pumbaa did in that in the climax. And so there are some times when obviously they do things in the first movie, and then in this movie they do some of the same scenes, and then they do some things a little bit differently. So the continuity doesn't quite add up from the first film to this film, which is another problem for me. Although the climax is entertaining and it is quite funny when Timon and Pumbaa are stalling the hyenas so that his mother and Max can dig the tunnel, and then there's a moment when Timon proposes to Shenzi, which I thought was hilarious. That was very funny, and so yeah. And I'm not going to say the animation is bad, because I think the animation is actually pretty good considering it's a straight-to-video sequel. The animation isn't actually half bad, so I give them credit for trying there with the animation. And there are some really beautiful backdrops in the animation. The colours they have are good. But again, it's the whole idea of it being a comedy, and it's not part of this trilogy. It doesn't feel like it. I would have rather have had a sequel to The Lion King 2, or a prequel to the first one, or something in between, because I don't think this sits well, really. And there's a whole section of the movie when Timon and Pumbaa try to split up Simba and Nala as well, and you know, I just find Timon in this movie really unlikable. I just don't like him as a character, and I mean towards the end, you know, you're meant to like him, of course, because you know he realizes he was selfish, and he decides to share his new dream home with everybody, which is nice. But you know, I just think he's too much of a dick. He is too much of a dick. And they ruined the opening scene of the first Lion King. I'm sorry, they just ruined it. I mean, and you know, this movie forcefully tries to connect to the first one. So you know, another reason there. I mean, Rafiki appears as well. He's good. I did like the fact that Rafiki was the one that kind of suggested the idea of Hakuna Matata. I thought that was cool. That was nice. And I just think the songs are lackluster, other than the Dig the Tunnel one. The direction is meh. It lacks the sheer emotional power. There's not enough drama. It's too much comedy. They needed to balance the drama and the comedy. When the dramatic scenes happen, like especially towards the end when Timon's, you know, he's like, oh, well, Simba shouldn't have left us, you know, and then Pumbaa's, you know, this is what happened to friends stick together to the end. I was about to ask you the same thing. Every time we almost get an emotional scene, it's copped out by either the cinema pausing or just not being invested whatsoever. And for me, the biggest issue is those cinema scenes. They're just so distracting, and it's unrealistic. It doesn't make any sense. But you know, it's strictly a kids movie, and I think kids who enjoyed The Lion King 1 and 2 will definitely like this movie. It's fun. It's definitely fun, and it is funny. It's a good fun movie. I thought Timon's uncle was a, you know, was all right character. Uncle Max, you know, he was an all right character, though he didn't do very much. And it is well animated. I just think that it was misguided quite a lot. So, anyway, that's sort of my main thoughts on The Lion King 1.5 or The Lion King 3, Hakuna Matata, whichever one you prefer to call it. I'm gonna rate this movie 5 out of 10. Yeah, it's okay, but really, it's you don't need it. The Lion King should have been one movie. For me, this is where The Lion King ends. I have not seen any of the other movies, and I don't plan to see any of the other movies. I'm happy to just stick with the first one. Of course, they're remaking the first one, which doesn't help. However, it's been an interesting ride to review this trilogy. So, yeah, I've enjoyed it. And what's your favourite movie of the Lion King trilogy? I mean, I'm pretty sure you'll say the first one, but if there are some people that prefer the second or third, then do let me know why. Do let me know down in the comments below. And what do you think of the Lion King 1.5? Please, again, comment down below. Let me know. Tune in for future reviews. So, yeah, I'll probably be reviewing Justice League very soon, as that is coming out next week. I think at the time I'm recording this, it's coming out next week. So, yeah, until then, thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.